The 1980s, big hair, bright clothes, and 2 decades before Shrek. It was a time when computers were becoming a must-have for the average person, and by extension, software. People like Bill Gates were making their fortunes off of this stuff. Within the world of the game, Software Incorporated, one man had a dream unlike any other. That dream was to create a company that doesn't produce software. KibblesJack didn't have a rich parent that he could just unalive to inherit a fortune, so he started a company, Monk Incorporated, in 1980 with the hopes of becoming a billionaire without ever producing any software. Kibbles woke up and grinded contract work every day, and he was able to scrounge up enough money to hire some extra staff to do most of the work for him, while he watched MTV or did something else people did in the 80s. He welcomed Jerry Scott and Guadalupe Landry onto the team. Things were going well. Monk Incorporated was making money, and they finally accumulated $500,000 in the bank. Well, one of the worst things for a capitalist like KibblesJack finally showed its ugly face. His employees asked for more money. KibblesJack decided that it was best to oblige to a slight pay increase at the moment, but from now on, he would consider Jerry and Guadalupe the start of his villain arc. Kibbles decided to invest the $500K they had made into an expansion of the business, with a new office and a pivot to a new side of the industry, support for existing software. He started several teams that would handle marketing and help center services for software produced by other companies. With this change, their revenue and profit margin grew. They were now making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in profit, like TikTok stars on OnlyFans. With this success, Kibbles had seen his opportunity to rid himself of Jerry and Guadalupe, the ones who dared to ask for raises. With them gone, Kibbles sat back and allowed himself to become a millionaire by the end of the 80s off of the work of others. The 1990s, Pokemon, Pogs, and still a decade before Shrek dropped. This was a time in which the internet was catching on, and many internet companies like Amazon or Google rose to dominate the domain. KibblesJack had seen a glimpse of the future, the ability for him to sell other companies' software online. In March of 1988, he had started a project to create an online distribution platform to profit off of the work of other companies. And in January of 1990, Monk Store launched. Monk Store had quickly gained over 2.5 million users, but there was still the problem of making money off of the platform. Kibbles didn't care that they had gained millions of users. All he cared about was getting his bag like Ebenezer Scrooge in the beginning of the story, not the Scrooge at the end of the story when he developed empathy. Kibbles had devised a plan to enter into exclusivity contracts to get companies to only distribute their products online through Monk Store. It came at a high price though. Monk Incorporated paid millions of dollars that they had saved to enter into these contracts. It was a risk, one that made Kibbles pray to any god that would listen for them to succeed. The early investment paid off for Monk Incorporated, as they were increasing their bottom line. But Kibbles sensed a need to act fast and carve into as much of the market as he could. KibblesJack reinvested what he had made and borrowed more money to sign as many exclusivity contracts as he could. He knew he could lose it all in an instant or make massive gains. Only time would tell if it was to be glory for him. In September of 1990, he bore witness to the metaphorical levees breaking and money flooding in. He saw revenues double. He was making $1 million a month, then $2 million. He was making more money than your semi-wealthy uncle that owns a car dealership. Monk Incorporated shot to the moon in value. In September of 92, the company was valued at $10 million, and by March of 1995, they had achieved a value of $50 million. Monk Store had paid off. With each new iteration of the platform, they gained more users and gobbled up more and more of the market for digital distribution. By the end of the 90s, KibblesJack had become extremely rich and successful off of other people's work. But he thought to himself, could he have more? He wanted to stick to his principles and not make software. But was it okay for him to own a company that does? The answer was obviously yes, because he is rich now and rich people make the rules. The 2000s, the decade of iPhones, social media, and of course, Shrek. Everything was online now, and the core business of Monk Incorporated had grown, with larger percentages of software sales now being sold digitally. Sensing now was the time to execute his plan to get other companies to make software for him, KibblesJack had initiated 2 hostile takeovers, one of Pamiware Interactive and the other of Smith Studios. He pumped money into these companies like diesel into expensive trucks that people buy and then never use for their design purpose. These companies were expected to release profitable products that sold well, or else Kibbles promised to fire everyone, close down the companies, and make sure that they never worked in the industry again. In July of 2002, Kibbles did just that to Pamiware. They were underperforming, and KibblesJack sought to replace them with a cheap company that had potential, a company by the name of Prime Trier Limited. He invested what Monk Incorporated had into taking them over. Kibbles had invested so much into these companies that he needed them to succeed, and the clock was ticking for his subsidiary Smint, as their fate would be decided in October of 2004. In October, Smint launched their software Malware Enter 10. After reviewing their sales, Kibbles had to decide if their employees were to be jobless or not. What Kibbles saw disgusted him. After seeing that it had only made $7 million in profit from Malware Enter, he threw up and immediately closed down Smint. Filled with rage and hopelessness, Kibbles thought that this might be as big as he could grow the company. He was demoralized. How could he fail at achieving his dream? He wanted it so bad, and wanting something makes it happen, right? He needed to check in with his other investment, Prime Trier. He wanted, no needed to win. When he checked the sales of their latest software, he was left speechless. They had done extremely well, profiting $162 million. With this victory, his company valuation blew up. Monk Incorporated reinvested a massive amount of what they had earned into new companies, and with successful launch after successful launch of his subsidiary software, money was rolling in faster than mid-Marvel shows could come out on Disney+. By November of 2010, over 30 years after the founding of Monk Incorporated, and roughly 9 years after the release of Shrek, Kibbles had achieved his goal. He had become a billionaire.